Medical sales is full of barriers, and your job is to break through. In other words, to penetrate those barriers. Let's talk about that. Hello, everybody. My name is Mace Horoff, and I want to welcome you to the Medical Sales Guru podcast, the podcast for medical sales professionals. And if you are watching on YouTube on the Medical Sales channel or at my website, medicalsalestraining.com, I want to welcome you as well. This is a combined podcast and video so I could reach a broader audience. And some of you, for some strange reason, want to look at me while you are learning about these important medical sales strategies and ideas. So I am glad you're here. Hopefully you'll be glad you're here. At least you will be if you apply what I'm going to talk about today. So let me start by saying that my goal here with the podcast, with the videos, it's not to increase your knowledge. Well, it is to increase your knowledge because I do want you to know more. But there's one thing that's more important than knowing more, and that is doing more, applying what you know. My goal is to motivate you to action so that you could get your products and services into the hands of more healthcare providers, institutions who could make a difference for the people they serve, their patients. That's what it's all about. Knowledge by itself is useless. You have to apply it. And if you apply what I'm going to talk about today, hopefully it will help you with product penetration. That's my penetration gesture that you're seeing here. So you hear that term a lot. Account penetration. What does that mean? What is account penetration? Well, it can mean a lot of different things, but primarily what it means is selling to all of the different departments and personnel in your accounts who are able to buy your product. In other words, if you're just selling to one department, you haven't really penetrated. You just kind of scratched the surface. You want to really get in. You want to hit everyone who can use it, everyone who influences the decision. This is really, really important. People who can approve the decision or who have a vote, whatever it is. Now, this is important because these are your accounts. A lot of medical reps are just happy with what they have. And don't get me wrong, I believe in being grateful. If you have some business, you should be grateful for that business, but don't leave money on the table. Penetrate those accounts. Listen, you already got in. You know, if you got in with one customer, with one buyer, with one contact, you are in the door. That person could help you to get further in. So leverage it. But these are your accounts. You got to take ownership. It's kind of like it's your house. Your accounts are your house. You have to take care of your house. You have to look for all of the areas that need to be maintained. Now, some of you, I'm talking about house ownership now. Some of you might like just to take care of the lawn because that's what people see from the outside. You want it to look good from the outside. But what about the inside? What's happening behind the walls? Do you pay attention to that? Or do you have termites? Is your plumbing maintained? Is your electrical maintained? It's the same thing with your accounts. There's so many moving pieces. So that's what we're going to talk about. It's about you taking ownership. You got to know everything you can about your accounts. And then you have to nourish the accounts. You have to nourish the people in those accounts. Now, some of you might think that you mean bring them food? I know a lot of you bring them food. And if you've listened to my podcast before, you know how I feel about bringing people food. I'm not opposed to bringing people food, but food in and of itself as a bribe, as a leverage to get you in the door, a lot of times it sends the wrong message. It's going to be what they associate with you in terms of value. In other words, you're not the person who solves their problems of a clinical nature. You're the guy who helps them when they're hungry. That's not who you want to be. Let the caterers take care of that. That's not your job. Your job is to help them with their problems in their account. Your job is to help them to reach the goals and the mandates and compliance issues they have with their accounts. That's what you do. Now, a lot of reps, they just focus on the people in the hospital who can either authorize a PO, deliver the PO, people who could actually buy directly. If you've been doing this for a while, you know that list is changing because Whereas it used to be one or two people, it's now very frequently a committee of people. So it's important, part of your account penetration strategy, in fact, a big part, this is what I want to talk about today, is to establish customer relationships with everybody you can. Now, let's start again looking beyond just the landscaping, just beyond the landscaping. You know, you meet so many people. If you go into a hospital or a clinic, but I'm going to talk about hospitals, you run into so many people every time you go in there. Let's start with the security department. Now, most reps, when it comes to the security department, they will just give a very cursory, hello, I need to go to materials management, or hello, I need to go to the operating room or respiratory therapy, whatever the case may be. The person you're talking to is a person. Sounds kind of redundant, doesn't it? But I'm trying to make a point. They're people. The security person, a relationship with the security person could come in very, very valuable. For example, they may know who you have to speak to actually get into certain departments that you've been having difficulty getting into. What about this? Have you ever had to drive up to a hospital in an emergency, maybe to deliver something or see somebody or render some technical expertise, and you want to leave your car in the front? It's usually a security person in the front who's going to say, buddy, you can't park here. But if that person knows you and you say, hey, Jim, I got an emergency. Here are the keys to my car. I'll be right out. I am so sorry. Is this okay? You can get a lot of leverage out of doing that. So don't discount even the employees that you tend to place a very low value upon in terms of the sale. Materials management goes without saying. You got to know the people in materials management. But again, for a lot of reps who sell to clinical departments, their focus on materials management is just going in, signing in, getting a vendor pass, and then getting referred to the department they're going to. Have a conversation with that person. Get to know something about them. How did they get into working at that hospital? Where did they work before? What do they like the most about their job? What do they like the least? What can salespeople do to make their jobs easier and more pleasant? Talk about this. Tell them that you'll help spread the word amongst the other sales reps that you know. Develop relationships. Here's a big one. Accounts payable. Do you like to get paid? I'm willing to bet that you do. Everybody likes to get compensated for the work that they do. Now, accounts payable arguably is a very important department in the hospital because they pay your company's invoices or they pay your invoices, whichever the case may be. Is it worth developing a relationship with accounts payable before you actually need them? See, most reps won't do that. They don't ever set foot in the accounts payable department until there's a problem, until an invoice is 90 days or 120 days overdue. And then they go in and say, I need to speak with somebody because we have a problem. That's not what it's about. Be proactive. Do it ahead of time. What about the clinical departments where the product is used or purchased? No problem there, right? You get into those departments all the time. But here's a question. Do you know everyone in those departments? See, let's say, for example, you work in orthopedics, because a lot of people that I know work in orthopedics. Doesn't matter. You work in cardiovascular, maybe you work in general surgery, maybe you work in respiratory, whatever it is. In that department, let's say you're in the operating room. There's a lot of people who work in the operating room. And most reps will only place an emphasis on developing relationships with the people in their department, like the orthopedic coordinator, the circulating nurse in that room, or the OR tech who scrubs the cases in orthopedics. They do a great job getting to know them. But what about the people in other specialties? What about the head nurse who's running the desk or running the board? What about the unit secretary who answers the phone? Why would you want to get to know these people? Because one day you might need their help. Or even if you don't, they could provide help where you don't even know you need it. I can't tell you how many times back when I was calling on operating rooms, I would get a call from someone in the operating room to say, hey, one of your competitors is here, and he's kind of cozying up to Dr. Jones, who is my biggest doctor. How would you like to get a call like that? Actually, you don't ever want to get a call like that. But if it's happening, you want to know about it. Believe me, that's what can happen when you have a relationship with the right people. What about the orderly who cleans the rooms? Now, you're probably thinking, my gosh, right? The orderly who cleans the room, he brings patients down to surgery, or, he just cleans up after a case. What possible value could that person have to you? You may have heard this story before, but back when I was selling, I was actually competing on a tourniquet system in one of my biggest accounts. Actually, it was 2 tourniquet systems. And this was about a $12,000 sale. Back 15 years ago, that was a lot of money. I know right now you probably have that on you in your pocket. You probably spend that on shoes because you're a very successful person. I'm kidding. But I'm trying to make a point here. It's a lot of money, $12,000, big sale. It was between me and another vendor. And quite honestly, you either like this tourniquet or you like this tourniquet. There wasn't a big difference. Well, Barbara, who was tasked with making the decision, she was in her office late one evening. The only other person in the operating room was Derek. And she didn't know who to choose. And she said, Derek, let me ask you a question. I got to choose a tourniquet system. I have to turn it in tomorrow. Who should I choose? And Derek says, well, who's it between? And well, it's between XYZ company and ABC company. And Derek said, well, who's the rep for the ABC company? And she said, the rep is Mace. And he said, well, that's easy. Buy it from Mace. And she looked at him and she said, why would you tell me to buy it from Mace? I mean, what's the difference? And she said, Derek said, because Mace is the only rep who talks to me. Guess who got the order? I got the order. And the only reason I got the order, I honestly believe, well, I had a 50-50 chance, but it's because I talk to everybody in the department. Now, that might not be account penetration strategies in the pure sense of the word, but it's getting to know everyone in the account. Let me ask you this. If you've been doing this for a while, have you ever sold to one person or you had a relationship with one person and suddenly they got promoted into a position where they could really help you? That's a great place to be. You know what's not a great place to be? When someone you've ignored and essentially blown off, like when they get promoted into a position where they could really help you, because people have long memories and people will remember the way that you treat them. What about value analysis committees? That frequently comes up today. If there's people on the value analysis committee, and I assure you that if there is a value analysis committee, there are people on it. These are people you need to know. And again, here's the thing. Reps wait until they need to get in front of the value analysis committee before they ever contact these people. Find out who they are. Find out what's important to them. Do your due diligence in case you ever need it, not only when you need it, but for when you need it. What about the C-suite? Administration. Same thing. Reps wait until they need to talk to the C-suite before they ever do anything about it. And then you go in there, you don't know anybody. You don't know who the executive assistant is for the hospital CEO or COO or CFO or CIO. You're first going in there, and then it's going to be a lot harder. Now, here's the thing. Chances are you may not need to go to the C-suite because not everybody does. But at some point, you might need to. At least go in there, drop off your card, meet the executive assistant, leave a card for her, leave one for the CEO, COO, whoever it is. Just tell them you stopped by, and you've opened the door, literally and figuratively. It's a great place to start. Interact with almost everyone you meet, and you're going to be that much closer to really establishing some level of account penetration. One final thing, and this is a little bit of a bonus for this podcast, as it is, keep in mind that your whole goal in meeting all of these people is to deliver some level of value. Now, that level of value might only be in saying, hi, how are you? Just a nice moment in their day. You being someone who cares. But also remember that the different personnel in your accounts, what they perceive to be valuable is going to differ from who your doctors are, or what your doctors consider to be valuable, for example. An OR nurse is going to have a different idea of value. She may, or he may, than a surgeon might. If you're selling to the respiratory therapy department, the respiratory therapist who's going to deliver patient care is going to have a different idea of value than the head of the department. Same thing in radiology, same thing in materials management if you're talking to a clerk or if you're talking to the director of materials management. Their value proposition is likely to be a little bit different. Your job as a medical sales professional is to understand, have a general understanding what their idea of value is, and then to probe it deeper so that you can really uncover what they consider to be important, and then, when able, position solutions such that they see you as someone who's different, someone who cares, and most importantly, someone who they value. In my opinion, that's what account penetration strategies are all about. And if you are watching or listening to this podcast and you say, well, Mace, where have you been for the last couple of weeks? We had some technical difficulties here. I updated the system on my Mac, and what happened was the audio interface for this microphone here that I use to hopefully record good audio quality, it crapped out, and I couldn't record at all. And it took a while to figure out a solution. So I apologize for that, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. I will be here for you, unless I'm traveling, unless something happens, but I always do my best to get this out to you every week. You could do something for me. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave a review on iTunes. At least give a like. Let everybody know that you like us. The same thing on LinkedIn. Please like us, like the post. And if you go to my Facebook page, which is Medical Sales Academy on Facebook, it's Facebook, and then just go to Medical Sales Academy /Medical Sales Academy. Please like us, because that helps to get the word out. And that's one of the reasons I do this, to spread the knowledge, spread the wealth, and to connect with more people. So I would appreciate your help with that. Oh, and please, if you're watching on YouTube, give us the thumbs up, give us the like on YouTube. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any ideas for a podcast or a video, please email it to me, mace@medicalsalestraining.com. I'll keep the content coming, and hopefully you'll keep delivering value to your customers and making a difference in the world of healthcare. So since you have the ability to make a difference, I hope you'll go out there and do that. And most importantly, whatever you do in your medical sales career, please don't forget that it is the patient who always comes first. Go do something great for the patient. For the Medical Sales Podcast and Medical Sales Channel, I'm Mace Horoff, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.